Something just happened, and no one is talking about it. On the surface, it looks like just another piece of policy from Beijing. A list, a few names, some companies. But look closer, and you will see the biggest move China has made against the US in years. Quiet, strategic, devastating. 18 major American companies were banned and excluded from China's economy overnight. But not just any companies. These are the giants behind America's most powerful weapons, the backbone of the military-industrial complex. The very same corporations that have enough political weight to influence presidents, shape wars, and decide foreign policy. So, what happens when their profits are threatened? What happens when their supply chains are shattered? And more importantly, why did China do it? Why now? And what exactly does it mean for America, for Taiwan, and for the fragile global order? In this video, let's know about the whole story. This wasn't a press release. This was a message. Quiet, brutal, and razor-precise. On April 4, 2025, China didn't just blacklist 18 American companies. It disconnected them. Not from the Chinese market. They never really operated there, but from the arteries that power their machines. It was an act of discipline, not desperation. No hashtags, no protests. Just bureaucratic detachment executed with surgical intent. 15 companies were slapped with export restrictions. Even 10 were thrown onto the infamous Unreliable Entities list. But this wasn't a trade dispute or tit-for-tat tariff play. This was a calculation aimed directly at the pressure points of American global power, like aerospace systems, battlefield electronics, semiconductors, guidance technology, and AI drone systems. All of it. And this time, China didn't strike the face. It hit the spine. Because these aren't companies that make toys or phones. These are the hidden hands that build the weapons, lobby the politicians, write the policies, and sell the war. Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, Shield AI, Sierra Nevada Corp. These are the firms that don't need an audience. Their clients are governments. Their business is warfare. And China understood something the West forgot. You don't always destroy the soldier. Sometimes you just starve the blacksmith. What makes this move dangerous isn't the hit to contracts. It's a hit to confidence. Investors are watching. Supply chains are stalling. Logistics teams are panicking. The machinery that once operated with imperial impunity is suddenly gasping for air. Not because it lost a battle, but because its lungs are tied to China's factories, minerals, batteries, and rare earths. So no, this wasn't noise. It was precision, not retaliation. Realignment. Because what China did was not about politics. It was about physics, the physics of global supply. And when you control the raw materials, the rare components, and the roads that move them, you don't need to fire a shot. You just close the gate. But questions arise on why China is hitting defense companies. Well, these companies manufacture leverage, the kind that flies 30,000 feet above conflict zones or operates in orbit, the kind that supplies Taiwan with weapons, sensors, radar systems, drones, missiles, and AI-enhanced surveillance. So when China hit them, it wasn't a protest, it was a precise correction. These firms have spent decades profiting from the red line Beijing has drawn over Taiwan, a line Washington treats like a hallway rug, stepped on every year with more arms deals, more tech transfers, and more military presence. But this blacklist? It wasn't a tantrum. It was Beijing that locked the door. By cutting them off from Chinese materials, components, and logistics, China is doing something rare in modern geopolitics, enforcing its red line not through warships, but through production chains. Not with warnings, but with action. And the genius of the move? These companies barely sell in China, but they source from it. That's the point. Batteries for drones, rare earths for guidance systems, microchips, casings, even soldering materials. One missing item in a long supply chain, and the whole operation stutters. Delays build. Contracts fall apart. Schedules implode. But the pain runs deeper because these companies don't just supply weapons, they influence policy. They fund think tanks, sponsor war games, write policy papers. They build the tools and then write the reasons to use them. Lockheed Martin doesn't just sell missiles to Taiwan, rather it helps shape the arguments in Washington that justify the sales. It's no secret. The same defense firms now blacklisted by China are also the ones feeding Congress reports on China's growing military threat. They are embedded in the machinery that turns friction into funding, standoffs into sales. If you still think U.S. foreign policy is written in the White House, you have not been paying attention. It's written in boardrooms, drafted in think tanks, whispered into ears at cocktail parties hosted by defense lobbyists. Because in America, defense isn't just a sector, it's the core of its economic and political identity. And China knows that. That's why the blacklist wasn't just aimed at metal and missiles. It was aimed at the real command center, the wallets and whispers that steer Washington. Let's get brutally honest. U.S. defense companies like Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, and General Dynamics don't just build weapons. They build wars. They don't just respond to conflict. They anticipate it, advertise it, and sometimes shape it. They fund the very studies that justify military buildups. They sponsor think tanks that write policy papers disguised as strategy. And when those policies pass, their stocks go up. It's not a conspiracy. It's a business model. And the engine behind that business model? The revolving door. In the United States, a Pentagon official doesn't retire. He upgrades. One year, he is approving billion-dollar defense contracts. Next, he is on the board of the same company he just handed taxpayer money to, now earning millions for making introductions and strategic recommendations. And this isn't rare, it's routine. By some counts, over 380 senior defense officials in recent years have joined private contractors within 2 years of leaving government. It's not just about power, it's about influence as currency. You retire from the Pentagon, and you don't just get a gold watch. You get equity, access, and the ability to shape future procurement from the other side of the table. Trump, ironically, said it best, and perhaps most truthfully, when he admitted that top U.S. generals push for wars because they want to keep the defense contractors happy. And yet, his administration was loaded with the very people he criticized. Jim Mattis, his first Secretary of Defense, came straight from General Dynamics and returned there after leaving office. Mark Esper, a former Raytheon lobbyist. This wasn't a disruption. It was loyalty to the machine, not the people. But what happens when a foreign power threatens that machine's bottom line? That's what China just tested. By blacklisting these companies, Beijing didn't just freeze supply chains. It threatened the bonus pool, the investor dividend, the stock option. It signaled to Washington's real policy writers, the ones with lobby badges and defense portfolios, that playing the Taiwan card comes with a cost. Not for America, for them. This is where the real war is waged. Not on the battlefield, but in the budget. The moment defense company revenues dip, those same firms will send their lobbyists marching, not to Taiwan, but to Capitol Hill. They will push Trump to back down on tariffs and stay away from Taiwan to appease China. Before we continue further, tell us, are you enjoying the video? If yes, please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on the latest news stories on geopolitics, economics, and current affairs impacting your lives. Here is what's really unsettling for Washington. For once, there is nothing to retaliate against. These weren't missiles, they were memos. This wasn't aggression, it was an execution. A quiet reminder that if you cross the red line, your contractors might keep talking, but their factories might not keep running. That's why this blacklist matters. It wasn't designed to punish, it was designed to pause. However, it goes beyond that, because U.S. arm companies being hit sends shockwaves at home. In turn, that's because these firms don't just build weapons. They anchor retirement portfolios, hold government contracts worth hundreds of billions, and are stitched into the financial security of every American worker who has ever trusted a pension plan. Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, and General Dynamics aren't just names in military procurement. They are institutional giants inside the Dow Jones, riding high on federal guarantees, shielded by political favor and cushioned by public money. But China just snapped the cushion. This isn't about banning exports to companies that barely operate inside Chinese borders. It's about severing the veins that feed them. Lithium from Sichuan, rare earths from Inner Mongolia, alloys from Guangzhou, semiconductors from Shenzhen. These aren't just materials. They are leverage points. Without them, timelines collapse, systems fail, contracts turn into liabilities. And suddenly, Washington's Goliaths are not strategic assets. They are financial contagions. That's what people don't see. The shockwaves aren't contained within the defense. They ripple out into markets, pension funds, and federal budgets. When these firms wobble, the government steps in. With subsidies, with bailouts, with inflated defense budgets dressed as patriotism. And guess who pays for all of it? Not the CEOs, not the board members. The American taxpayer, the worker, the retiree. The inflation Americans feel? It's not accidental. It's fallout. Here, China's policy should be understood. China is handling things with surgical precision, while the US makes noise with sanctions and tariffs. China wants to suffocate America. Slowly, deliberately, without warning. Now, while the US struggles, the rest of the world isn't lining up behind it. They are recalculating. Brazil doesn't want entanglement. Turkey is playing both sides. Saudi Arabia is quietly signing yuan-based oil contracts. India is hedging. The old binary of with us or against us is gone. What's emerging is a fluid system, one where power isn't declared by allegiance, but by leverage. In all this, China has shown how it will respond if the red line is crossed. The sensitivity of this matter should be understood. Let's take the example of Hawaii, which is over 2,000 miles from the US mainland. Imagine that suddenly it declares it wants to chart its own democratic path, separate from Washington. Now imagine China openly sending weapons to the Hawaiian Islands, arming local forces, training them, and inviting Hawaiian leaders to Beijing to sign trade deals, bypassing the US government entirely. What would Washington do? Would it stay calm, smile and say, "It's their right"? No, it would respond with absolute fury. Likely warships, possibly airstrikes, definitely sanctions, and it would call anyone aiding Hawaii a hostile foreign actor, threatening US sovereignty. Because Hawaii, though physically distant, is considered indisputably part of the United States. The distance doesn't matter. History does. The sovereignty does. Now replace Hawaii with Taiwan, and the US with China. That's how China sees it. For Beijing, Taiwan is not a foreign country. It's not an ally. It is China's territory, the same way the US sees Texas, Alaska, or Hawaii. It was part of China for centuries. It was taken by force during colonial wars. And even today, the vast majority of countries, including the United States, formally recognize one China. But here's where the hypocrisy starts. While America insists that one China is official policy, it sells Taiwan billions in weapons. It sends unofficial military advisors. It forms direct economic ties, trains Taiwan's army, and uses the island as a geopolitical wedge to provoke Beijing. This would be like China forming military alliances with Alaska or Puerto Rico. like Russia arming California secessionists. So when China retaliates, economically, surgically, through blacklists and export bans, it's not acting irrationally. It's acting with the same logic Washington would use if the roles were reversed. What the West calls defending democracy, Beijing sees as colonial meddling. What the US calls supporting Taiwan's autonomy, China calls arming its breakaway province. And here's the key question. No one in the West wants to answer. If China did to America what America is doing to China, what would happen? You already know the answer. So does China. And that's why they are done playing games. Apart from ideological connection, China knows Taiwan's dominance in the chip market. 92% of the world's advanced semiconductors come from Taiwan. And the more America militarizes Taiwan, the more China uses economic tools to retaliate. But what happens when economics hits a wall? When supply chain warfare no longer delays, but triggers? That's the danger zone. Because the Pentagon isn't built to absorb economic losses, it's built to react. And China knows this. The more it squeezes US defense firms, the more it provokes American hawks, the ones whose careers and campaign funds depend on confrontation. And when they push back, it won't be with more spreadsheets. It will be with warships, drones, and freedom of navigation missions. China's blacklist wasn't just an economic move, it was a red flag, a final warning before red lines become battlegrounds. And when that happens, no side walks away without scars. This isn't the first shot of a trade war. This is the opening phase of a siege, one that doesn't knock down walls, but erodes foundations. One shipping route at a time, one export license at a time, one factory deadline at a time. And while politicians still talk about negotiation, China has already moved on to implementation. Defense firms are bleeding, supply chains are shrinking, Wall Street is whispering, Pentagon budgets are ballooning to cover delays they can't even explain in public. The machine is stalling, not visibly, not all at once, but internally, systemically. And that's the nightmare no one wants to admit. That this isn't a crisis, it's a correction. That America isn't being attacked, it's being recalibrated by the one country that studied its playbook, copied its strengths, and then found every flaw in its system. So here is the truth. If you are waiting for the bang, you have already missed the war. The siege has started, and it won't end when a trade deal is signed. It ends when the architecture of US global dominance, supply chains, dollar dependence, and defense monopolies finally breaks under pressure that never made a sound. And by the time the media starts paying attention, it will already be too late. What do you think? Can Trump really fight China, given that the United States is economically dependent on the Chinese market and supply chain? What do you make of Trump already backing down and expecting Chinese chips and phones from tariffs? In the comment section below, share your thoughts on what if China decided to fight back with full force? Will the US survive? Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We bring the latest news stories on geopolitics, economics, changing world order and current affairs, things you need to stay informed. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.